So I want to do the cardiovascular system first. It starts with the heart. This is cardiac muscle. So I may ask you to identify a tissue type, cardiac muscle. I may have you identify this structure here, or any of these vertical, dark, staining things. Intercalated discs under the heart. The heart pumps blood into the arteries closest to the heart. Those are the elastic arteries. Here's an elastic artery right here, from top to bottom. You have the tunica intima, tunica media, tunica adventitia. The tissue types in tunica media are very obviously red and pink. Pink and black. Black are elastic fibers. And so you can see the high elastic content on an elastic artery. The pink or reddish ones, smooth muscle. The content of tunica adventitia, collagen fibers. I may ask you to identify vessels of the vessel, the vasovasorum. The little blood vessels that are the blood supply to these outer layers of cells. So that's an elastic artery. The smaller arteries are the muscular arteries shown here, and that's a large vein. Muscular artery, large vein. If we take a look at the artery closer, you can see that the muscular artery in the TM has a higher content of smooth muscle, but I still see blackish lines which indicate elastic fibers. Now this dark structure in tunica intima is the internal elastic lamina. So that's the TI, TM, that's TA, that's tunica adventitia. Here's the vein. The tunics are TI, TM, TA, tunica intima, media, and adventitia. Okay, this is the large vein. Here's another artery. It's still a muscular artery. TI, TM, TA. Okay. This is an arterial. Now we're down to two layers. A TI, a TM, but there's really no TA. And this is a central arterial from white pulp. But that's the vessel type. Arterial, two layers. This is going back to a muscular artery. TI, TM, TA, those are red blood cells in the middle there. But I found one on this slide that's barely the width of a red blood cell. I see one tunic, TI, that's a capillary. Capillary. This is a venule. By definition, if it's the central venule of the liver, it's venule. Okay, so that's kind of how I know. Here's a closer up view of that. Just call it venule. That's the type of blood vessel it is. And then I want to switch to blood cells. I point to a little fragment, platelet, kidney-shaped nuke. That's monocyte. These are all eosinophils. Okay, this is probably a condition called eosinophilia. Well, that's a little bit out of focus, but I can still see the red granules in the bilobe nuke. Eosinophil. These are both the same cell type, neutrophil, both of them. Here and here, neutrophil. This is a condition called iron deficient anemia. The blood cells are kind of clumping together, and that's a microcyte. Okay. A different kind of anemia called sickle cell anemia. I see puckered cells. I don't see microcytes. This is a sickle cell anemia. More blood cells. This is a lymphocyte, and this is one we've seen before. What is it? Red granules? Eosinophil. Okay. It's a nice looking lymphocyte. Well, moving away from blood, going to respiratory, this is the slide of the tracheal wall. I may ask you to identify mucosa, submucosa, adventitia. You see the big cut tracheal ring there? If I have you identify this tissue of the mucosa, ciliated pseudostratified columnar epithelial tissue with Goblet cells. Goblet cells. The basement membrane we call lamina propria. These are seromucous glands of the submucosa. And here is the hyaline cartilage of the adventitia. Okay. So once again, I think this is a better picture of the hyaline cartilage. The adventitia contains all of these tissues too, but I usually don't ask that. Just tracheal ring is the important structure I'd like you to be able to identify. So moving from trachea to deep inside the lung tissue, I see some structures up here. These are bronchioles. There's nothing in them. They're supposed to be air. That's a blood vessel. I see red blood cells in there. I can recognize the vessel wall there. This is a really good example of a bronchiole dividing into alveolar ducts. Okay, right here, right here. If I point to this structure, it's a structure surrounded by individual alveoli. That's an alveolar sac. So an individual dead end is an alveolus. Okay. Here's a higher mag of the bronchial epithelium. This is a cuboidal epithelium. It's not pseudostratified columnar with cilia anymore. Maybe there's like sparse cilia here and there, but it's not very pronounced when you get down to the bronchial level. So if you see any kind of a cuboidal epithelium, that's bronchial. But notice how it changes from here to here. What would you call this? Ducts. Alveolar ducts. Okay, there's an alveolar sac. This is a higher mag. That's an alveolar duct there. But one individual little pocket, what would you call that? Alveolus. Alveolus. Very good. This is emphysemalum, right? I don't think that's a hard question. It looks good. There's a higher mag of the emphysemalum that we saw earlier. And so those slides will be included on your cardiorespiratory quiz. And what did you do? How many points is it? 50. Now, so some things coming up. There's that quiz. I just got you ready for that. Let me turn your slideshow on.